I'll go. Welcome to license lesson 6, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I think it
seventh
is
or sixth,
life
right? Yeah.
lessons. Yeah.
Hopefully we're side by side because yeah, we've been having technical difficulties. We meant to start this half an hour ago, but we managed to get this on. Amir had a. Do you want to fit in the frame a bit better, maybe?
So for this meeting, or for this podcast session, what we're going to be
Mm.
doing is going over the best advices that we have found from Reddit and discussing them between us. So so hopefully that's of some value to you guys, and you guys get some good insights and knowledge from that. So let's begin that as soon as possible then.
Yeah, I guess I'm at the mercy of Amir here because I can't see the Reddit.
It's
I'm gonna
okay.
be actually reacting to it.
Okay. So the first quote we have, or the first single best piece of advice that this person has ever heard is your success in life is largely dependent on how many uncomfortable conversations you are willing to have. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I like that one. I mean, obviously, that's the only, that's the one you told me before.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's the one we discussed beforehand. So,
We've got to be honest, I don't want to cap on this.
mhm.
It is, yeah, that Amir went, it'd be a good idea. This wasn't planned, but he just sort of went, it'd be a good idea reacting to Reddit's best advice and showed me this was as an example. But funny enough, I think it's actually a really good one,
Mhm.
actually. I think it's I think it's a great one.
Mhm.
Um, so the more uncomfortable conversations. I think maybe I would expand it to not conversations, but uncomfortable sort of like success in life is about being able to be uncomfortable, but like getting through that, or not being scared of uncomfortability, whether it's social, or just like, in your own mind, like fighting procrastination. But yeah, I think the uncomfortable conversations things, because the uncomfortable conversations are usually the conversations you need to have, right?
Mhm.
So I
I was
think,
also thinking that with the uncomfortable conversations thing, it should be your primary objective to transform those uncomfortable situations into comfortable situations. Because if you're still thinking that they're uncomfortable situations or conversations whilst you're having the conversation, then that may be detrimental to like the results you obtain from it.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, for me, like in my own personal like kind of headspace, I'm always thinking about my gauge of how well I'm doing is like how comfortable I'm feeling, really. Because
Mm,
for me, having that feeling of contentness and just being comfortable and relaxed in an environment, um, is that's definitely like for me that's a measure of how confident I feel, how well I'm doing. That's for sure. So like for me in particular, when it comes to like interviews, like I remember
mm,
doing like for whatever reason, I seem to be relaxed. Maybe it's just because I'm quite an extrovert people person anyway, but I was in a meeting and I was pretty relaxed. I was in a job interview and just managed to stay relaxed, and that's so important. And that's really the difference. When important things are happening, you get nervous per se. Being able to actually just remain calm and relaxed and just and then from there that's really makes the difference, because from then you can just do what you need to do and you have to like kind of second guess yourself.
mm.
And confidence is a lot what people are looking for anyway. But yeah, I like the I definitely like the comfortable conversation one, because people run from discomfort, like people don't want to work out, people procrastinate, and people procrastinate because getting up and doing stuff takes willpower, and it's there's sort of like a discomfort in that, where it's much nicer, like we like to take the path of least resistance. That's how our brains are functioned, and the path of least resistance is sitting down in your bed watching whatever and not moving unless you have to eat, unless you're starving. That's the path of least resistance. Whereas almost, and the path of least resistance make you comfortable, but seeking things outside of the path of least resistance and making yourself uncomfortable for the short term makes you, it's just, that's how you grow. That's how you grow in your own space, for sure, man.
Yeah, yeah. Just to add to that, like when you go along the path of most resistance, so the opposite of what you're basically saying, like the results exponentially increase, not instantaneously, but over time you become more successful, you become more confident, and you open up a whole load of opportunities to yourself that you originally did not have open, because that's where you have meet friends, that's where you make friends, that's where you have interviews from, that's where you go to Toastmasters and socialize and improve your public speaking abilities, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you go to the gym as well and eat
Jeez.
healthy.
I need to plug my laptop in. 1 second. I'll edit this out.
Okay.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, this podcast seems to be full of outtakes, but do you finish your thought there, or
Just a bit to add. So the the piece of advice was that your success depends on how many uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
Mhm.
But then it depends on your occupation as well. So it'd be better for you. I think it's better to say that those uncomfortable situations, uncomfortable conversations that you're going to have need to be transformed into comfortable conversations. Because if you're in a job like a psychologist or you're a therapist, then it's necessary for you not to have those uncomfortable conversations with your clients. Because if you're having
Mhm.
uncomfortable conversations with them and those are coming across to them and you're conveying that uncomfortableness, then basically they're not going to be sticking with you for very long. And
Yeah.
your success is going to be going downhill from there, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I mean, I think this is part of stoicism, isn't it? Becoming comfortable in the uncomfortable,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I'd have to mention Goggins with this because, like, that this is kind of his whole thing about maybe not the conversation bit, but his whole thing is do things that are uncomfortable, and because it makes you stronger. And the more discomfort you can take, the stronger you are mentally, and that's his thing. And mental strength is probably something we don't really talk enough about. It's not something, but it's something that's, if you can demonstrate mental toughness, it's a very admirable trait, and it helps you a lot in life. If you
Hmm.
can, have things not go your way, and being able to just kind of keep a measured approach and not give into emotions and stuff like that. I think it really, I mean, that's Goggins' whole thing. The more discomfort you can take, the stronger you are mentally. And doing stuff like running, exercising, cold showers, whatever, these things that are kind of good stress,
Hmm.
that are stressful but they're good for you and make you stronger. The more you do that, the more, like, in your everyday life, things will, like, register less. Like, if you do a scientific explanation, like, it's a stimulus, and there's a level of stimulus you need to reach to get an emotional response, or for you to get, goosebumps, or for you to feel nervous. There's like a stimulus that needs to happen. And if
Hmm.
I feel like the more you've done something, or the more you're used to being uncomfortable, the less these things register. I think repetition is really important. It's like being a basketball player with free throws. Like, if you're in a lecture of 500 people, is a good example. The first time you ask a question, you'd be pretty nervous, but the 20th time you do it, you probably won't be as nervous. So, being things that might seem really scary at first, if you do them a lot more, you just become very used to it, and your
Hmm.
brain just adapts because they
Yeah, I think
become comfortable. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's happening with all things, right? Because like I have a friend of mine who's a police officer and he sees people die regularly, and that's a bad thing, of course. And but he's become desensitized to it over time. And if we make ourselves, we take that rubric basically and that metric and we apply them to our own lives, we can basically utilize repetition in order to become desensitized towards uncomfortable situations. And then when we become desensitized to uncomfortable situations, that can greatly impact our success and positively switch our lives around,
Yeah.
I think.
How many of these quotes do you have on that Reddit?
We have quite a lot. Do you want to go into the next one?
Yeah, I think we can go. I think we said quite a lot about it.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Mm. That's a good one.
I like this. They're making the content for us.
Okay.
Yeah, Do you want to tell him what you said about the black jacket I'm wearing? But
Oh
like,
yeah.
Sin, I thought it was the funniest thing I've heard.
So basically, I was saying the black jacket that Mark's currently wearing is like the black classic self-improvement shirt that every self-improvement guru wears. You
It's
see, he's
true.
made a
Like
transformation.
yeah, like Sinbad has a
Hmm.
Prism Command always just wears a black t-shirt. That other guy, the guy with the glasses, black hair, what's his name? The guy who just like learned language in a month. That guy always just wears black. It's whatever reason.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't know. Black slimming makes everyone look good, and so I don't know. But
It's like
that is what I
professional
like.
as well, right?
Yeah, I mean suits are
Hmm.
typically black or a shade of black. So yeah, decent. What's the Reddit
Okay.
saying then?
So no one who is great at something was always great at it.
Hmm. I
Hmm.
like that. Um, this is quite funny. I quite like this because we can clip this up and it very much goes into segments. But I think this is really good because if you look at a good example, I mean, okay, Michael Jordan, right, is a great example. I mean, everyone knows the
Hmm.
story now, particularly with The Last Dance coming out on Netflix. A lot more people are aware of it who wouldn't be aware of it before. Like this idea of being a like mastery. You've heard of the 10,000 hours rule, right? It takes time to become good. I don't care who you are, it takes practice. And every single person that started doing something started from nowhere. So like that's the thing, and people don't want to think about that when they see someone's success. They always in their mind to make themselves feel better will say, "Oh, well, they had a lucky break," or I can't do this because of this and this and this. Like
Hmm.
PewDiePie's got 105 million subscribers. He started with zero, just like me and you started with zero. He went through stages of getting 20 views, like we are right now. That's how it. And it's the same with musical instruments. Like I don't know, like Slash, the guitar player, or whatever. Jimi Hendrix, like they had the first lesson when they couldn't strum a chord, but that's the practice it takes. And a big thing for people is a lot of people don't want to start doing things because when you start something, you're really
Hmm.
bad, and you have to almost. People are scared to be bad a little bit. Like they're scared of admitting that they're not very good at something. It can be an ego thing where it's like, oh, I don't need to do that. So oh, I don't need this. If like if you can't do something, you just get angry. It's like, oh, well, just hate this game. So you try to learn something on the guitar, and after an hour it fails. You're well, who needs to play the guitar anyway?
Hmm.
But that sort of ability for just like being able to think, well, forget how good I am and how good that looks to other people, or any of that stuff to see, you know, if you find something, that's the thing. If you find something you enjoy, because it doesn't matter. Like for me on YouTube, the reason I do the podcast isn't because of the views. Like we could get 0 views for this video. We'd still do it. We still do another podcast because we enjoy it.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. A lot of people are scared to be bad, and because of that, they never try at all, and they never, because you have to learn something really well. You have to start with. You can't start with any. You want to be a clean slate, right? A complete clean slate, and then you can learn a lot better. Whereas if you have all these preconceived notions about what you need to do or what's right and what's wrong, and then or like preconceived notion of how good you think you should be already, despite not starting, it's just it's not the best really.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, go on.
I was thinking a similar kind of thought. What I was thinking was that I was thinking about the Jordan Peterson quote. It's like the prerequisite to being a master is being the fool. And so you need to be willing to be a fool in order to be a master. Like you can either maintain your pride and your dignity and your sense of respect, but then not learn anything in the process. Like in university, I can go into my lectures and say to my professor that, yes, I understand this complex variation of mathematics and I understand how the formula works and everything, but do I really understand it? Or am I just kidding myself and saying that I understand it just so I don't look like an idiot in front of everyone? I could do
Yeah,
that, or I could be honest and just raise my hand and ask the question. Because if I don't get it, then there's a high statistical likelihood that someone or a lot of people in the room with me don't actually get it either, and they're just in the same boat that I'm in, and they're just not willing to ask the question. So it's always necessary to be willing to put yourself out there and be willing to make those changes and those sacrifices in order to generate the results that you wish to generate. Also, another thing that I want to add is that not all people have the ability to be great in all domains, but we can definitely reach, or they don't start at a great level, but you can definitely, what am I saying here? All people don't actually start at a great level, but over time, if you work your way up, you can definitely get to a good level in most areas in life if you're average, like we are, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with what you the point. It's about people don't want to take criticism, and when you're doing something, if you're learning to become great at something,
Hmm.
you have to be self-critical, right? Like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, these sportsmen, they're watching themselves. They're watching themselves play. Like back on, they're watching them back play on the film all the time.
Hmm.
You know, analyzing what they did right, what they did wrong, how they can improve. And that's the thing. People don't want to admit to themselves that they're because it kind of goes around to a larger self-improvement point, which is a lot of people never develop. They never become better because to become better, you have to admit you're not everything you could be, and you have to admit you're not good enough in a
Hmm.
way. And that's scary to admit that. It's to admit your own insecurities or to admit that you're not, you know, because a lot of people, it can be an ego thing. It's like, oh, you know, what's wrong with me? You know, it can, you
Hmm.
don't want to, but then if you look, at, you know, objectively at something you do or something you know, you are, you know, you can always see ways to improve. It's just you have to humble yourself before you can be better. That's the
Hmm.
thing. You have to learn. You know, there's a phrase, you either win or you learn. You know, but like there's loads of examples, but like
Yeah, I think it's always better to sacrifice your honor and your pride and your arrogance in order
mhm.
to become humbled by reality and in order to improve yourself, because the results that you're going to attain by humbling yourself is far superior to the arrogance that you're obtained by remaining as a fool.
Yeah, I mean, for an example, like I'm trying to learn Spanish at the moment, and one thing that's helped me because helped me in the past, like I've learned become quite good at sport and learn musical instruments. I think the thing that's always helped me learn these things because they're not easy to learn is I've always had this ability of not being worried about how good I am at the moment or anything, right? Like I don't think about how good I am, and that's actually think about it. It's don't compare yourself to other people. There's a Peterson thing, right? Jordan Peterson.
Hmm.
It's don't compare yourself to who someone else. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
Hmm.
Just don't think about, you know, when we're on YouTube. I'm not going to think, oh, well, KSI is getting millions of views and doing songs with Rick Ross. God, why do I even bother? Like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking
Hmm.
today I got on my music reaction channel. By the way, subscribe. If like you know, I got 200 views yesterday. Today, it'd be nice to get 201. That's the thing. It's like don't compare yourself to other. You know, if you play a musical instrument, and then you know your teacher's amazing, of course he is. That's fine. But you know, compare yourself to who you are. Don't worry about the people. But, I mean, that's a general life point, really, isn't it? People
Hmm.
compare themselves to others
That's a piece
all
of
the time.
advice in and of itself, right?
Yeah, that's not you know you can that applies in any context. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
That's a good
Like
point. It's a really
a
good
really
point.
good point. Like it's
Hmm.
don't worry about you know you don't want your value to come from being the biggest or the best at anything because there will always be someone better than you at something or bigger
Hmm.
than you or funnier than you. Like don't take the value in the fact that you're the best at something. Take the value in the fact that you can be better.
Hmm.
It's like Peterson always says like intellectuals think they gain their pride from their intellect. It was like some you know the better to do is like get pride from the fact that there's so much more to learn.
Hmm.
Yeah. You know that you know I'm already you know think you know you're already doing well and there's still so much to learn. That's I mean this is a very good advice though. I definitely rate this one.
Which is a
The
good one.
first two have
Yeah.
been great. We can bang another
There
one
are
if you
loads of
want.
like this. There are like loads. They're like
Yeah,
this. There's like nuggets of gold just riddled throughout this section.
yeah. I think the criticism one is definitely true because people don't want to. That's the thing, like self-development, self-improvement, whatever you want to call it. The first step is admitting you're not perfect, but people don't like admitting because it's like admitting there's something wrong with them is quite hard to do for some people. For whatever reason it is. It's like, you know, admitting a problem. It's hard, but the first stage in getting something better is admitting there is a problem or admitting there is a fault or admitting there is like an inadequacy at some point. And then from there you can go, you know, but it's like people don't admit that, so they'll never ever get any better anyway.
Hmm.
Yeah, we could go on to another one if you want. Or do you
So
want more to say?
we have one here. This guy's saying, I like the billionaire who said that he wanted to give his children enough money to do anything, but not enough to do nothing.
That's good. That's good. I like that.
So it's
It's
basically
like,
making sure.
yeah.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, you can go. Go on.
Okay.
I always talk first.
So he's basically making sure that his kids have got some money to do the things that they want, but also not enough money that they can just sit lying around and doing nothing. So it's giving them an incentive to go out and do the things that are necessary for them to provide themselves with a relatively good life, and for them to do the things that they wish to do, I suppose. And no, for them to have a relatively good financial situation, because they have enough to do what they want to do, but they don't have enough to sit around and do nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah. To be honest, yeah, I think that's a good start because sometimes rich kids can be the most messed up psychologically because it's like they've already got everything, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to gain. You can't have any ambition if you already got everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the brain is a muscle, and
Mm-hmm.
if the muscle has no resistance, the muscle will atrophy and deform, and when you grow older, the muscle deforms, and you know it's the same with the brain. If you haven't got any challenge or something to get through, there's nothing to that your brain just doesn't. It's not psychologically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think progression through your life is one of the most important things, and having targets and goals. It's one of the most important things, like for mental health, for well-being, and having if you are a billionaire, you want to, you've earned the money, send your kids to the best schools or whatever, so they can do whatever they want to do, but not to the fact where daddy buys me everything, all that rubbish, and they're already having like that they're buying, their 18-year-old, they get given a car for their birthday, like a really nice car that most people couldn't get just
Mm-hmm.
by virtue of being a son. It's not teaching them the lessons that they need to earn these things. It's teaching them that you can get what you want given to you on a plate, which one day that worldview will be shattered, and they won't, and
Mm-hmm.
and they won't be enough to get through. And then from there, they'll have a real realization, and they'll have to really get their ideas together. Whereas as a parent, you really want to be teaching your kid how to survive on the world on their own. And the way to do that isn't by spoiling your kids. A lot of people do it. They want their kids to have everything, but kids have to learn to, go their own way and be self-sufficient. And you can't do that
Mm-hmm.
if you're giving them everything. And to be honest, like having enough money to do nothing, there is enough money to do nothing, but it's not psychologically healthy to do nothing. It really isn't. Like, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, I do have issue with the idea of like, retiring at 65. Like, they shouldn't call it retirement because from the moment you were born, from the age of 5, you're at school until like what, potentially 24 if you go to university. And then you're working from 24 till 65, 70, whatever it is by the time we're old. And then this idea that you're just going to stop and relax, it's rubbish. We're not built for that. If anything, after you finish working, you should stop working for money if you've got enough money amassed that you can do what you want and maybe spend more time on your hobbies and stuff. But you need to fill the time. Like doing nothing is the worst thing you can do. Like procrastination or being lazy, it's awful. I mean, it's one of the deadly sins, I think, in Christianity. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I'm Christian or anything, but these aren't new ideas. Yeah, you can't do like COVID's a great example because people have like I've had nothing to do for except I've had stuff to do, but like I haven't had university. I had a job before COVID and I got let go because of COVID, and I had all these responsibilities and things I had to do, and all of a sudden I had nothing and I just had free time, and yeah, it's not after a long enough time that's not a good thing. So
Mm-hmm.
psychologically at all, I don't think it's good for mental health. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, man. I don't think it would be good for mental health. Like, I know that after you reach a specific age, we just retire and we do nothing, right? Or a large proportion of the population can do that, and that's what they're aiming towards at some point in their lives. But doing that, I think, is detrimental in some sense because of the fact that if your body has a reason to keep going, then it will. I remember reading the story here. I was on Quora. It's like you know what Quora is, right? It's like
Yeah,
Bing
cool.
or
Yeah.
Yahoo, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
read about different things, read about different stories that of interest to you. And there was a story on there about a woman who had cancer, I believe, and the doctors diagnosed her and said that she was supposed to die within, or likely to die within a specific period of time, and she had very little time left. But she continued to do what she was going to do. She didn't settle down. She didn't retire. She was supposed to retire. She was supposed to settle down because that's what everyone was assuming that she would do, and that's what everyone was expecting of her. But she didn't do that. Instead, what she did was go back to elementary school and teach the kids there that she taught, because she was a teacher, and she continued to teach them for as long as she possibly could teach them. And she lived on till like she was 90 in the 90s, and I think she was in the 60s at the time, and when she got diagnosed with cancer, and they said that it was going to end for her, but it never did. So if the body has a reason to survive, it will survive. So that's the reason as to why people need a purpose in life. If you eliminate the purpose of their lives by giving them a huge heap of money, then they have no purpose to continue their lives, or purpose to be motivated or be inspired or go out and have the impetus to change the world, right? You don't eliminate people's drive by giving them huge amounts of money. But then you have to consider this as well. You have good things on either end of the spectrum. It's not always bad to be rich and wealthy and
No, yeah.
have huge quantities of money, because there are things that you learn when you're rich, that when you're rich, that you don't otherwise learn when you're poor. For instance, if you're growing up in a rich household, you can learn how to delegate people, how to manage companies, how to socialize, how to properly manage your resources between multiple assets and companies. But when you're poor, you also learn a valuable set of skills like hard working, diligence, persistence, determination. You learn the value of being grateful for everything that you've obtained, because you've got it through huge quantities of hard work and sweat and tears and labor. So it's, at the end of the day, there are positive things on either side of the spectrum to be learned, but it's definitely incredibly difficult to have all the positive aspects of being rich and have all the positive aspects of being poor merged into one.
Yeah. I mean, psychologically, I think they've done studies and up to 70, 80,000 a year, the more money you have, the happier you are. So there is definitely, wealth is
Mm.
important. Up to about 100 grand, let's say. So 100 grand's a lot. Most people don't have 100 grand. So there definitely is something to be said for a massive wealth, and it allows you to, potentially go on more holidays, to nicer places, spend maybe more time off and relax, and not have to worry about putting food on the table. So there is something to be said for that.
Mhm.
But in terms of like the question about like having the kids, I had a thought. It's gone now. um, what's I gonna say? For me, like amassing wealth is definitely something I have as a target, because it does open doors. It does open
Definitely.
doors for sure, but when people say like money doesn't buy you happiness, I don't like that. It's like no one, I don't think anyone who's actually sit down and thought about it, actually
I
thinks
think
money's the answer to like complete well-being forever.
I
I mean,
think
this
money does buy you happiness, but to like a certain extent.
yeah. I remember like a rapper said, money can't buy you happiness, but you can rent it.
Hmm. It's
Um,
good. Good
to,
saying.
to a point, like if you can't put food, if you're homeless, money
Mm.
can buy you
Yeah.
happiness. In certain situations, money can buy you happiness. But yeah, like I said, I don't like. Does anyone who's actually sat down and thought about it think if they got, people who win the lottery, their lives usually aren't better actually afterwards, right? They lose it again, often more poor than
Mm.
they were. So the answer to, if you're going to be like, trying to help people, sometimes if you gave a homeless man £50,000, you that's not necessarily the right answer, because
Mm.
like lottery winners, they lose it all again potentially sometimes. So sometimes like just having an equation and saying plus 50 grand doesn't always fix the problems people have. um like, there are people who, they earn 20 grand a year, they're the happiest people you'll ever meet, and there are people who are billionaires who are miserable.
Mm.
Money's, once again, it's a factor. It's not
Uh, Something that I
more
want to add
important
to
than
that.
everything.
Well, you're adding, right? You're talking about giving the 50K to the homeless person.
Yeah,
It's like the phrase, you teach a man to, well, you give a man a fish and he survives for a few days. You teach a man to fish and he survives for a few weeks and even months and years, right?
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Exactly, because but if you're a parent, you want to teach your son to fish. You don't want to give him fish,
Hmm.
right? Um, you know, you want to give that kid chores, responsibilities. They need to understand that the house over their head and the food on the table and the comfort they have, it isn't a divine right. It's not something that will be there. You know, it's not something that will always be there. Like they need to understand that that's there because of the time and effort they put in to earn the money. You know, their father and their mother, they go out and work and put that there. It's not a divine right. They've earned it. It's not something that is just there as a natural thing. It's something that they had to work towards. It's not a divine right. It's not God given. It's not something that by virtue of them being born they have it. It's not the case. I mean, ask how many people in Brighton will tell you that. Yeah, it's you could do a broader point into politics, but we try to stay to self-improvement because there's enough people who are uninformed about politics talking about it on YouTube.
Do you want to do one point each or 2 points each, and then we go into the next point? Because otherwise we're gonna stay on for too long, you know, and then we're not gonna get enough content out of this. Do you want to do that?
Yeah. Go to the next one.
Yeah. How do you want to do this? 1 point each, 2 points each?
I'll just talk until we feel like we haven't got much more to say, which
Okay.
will end up being about that anyway, because we have our initial thoughts. I listen to you. Maybe that gives me another idea. Then I express that. That's probably enough. It's 2 each, roughly. You know, we don't have to do like you're giving a speech, I'm giving a speech. It can be more give and take like that. It can be more give and take, you know. But anyway, yeah, you can go. What's the next really one then?
Be the person you needed in life.
Be the person you needed. God, it's hard. I know what it's trying to say. It's
Well, you could rephrase it and be the person you need in life.
I think it's like there are people who we've met that are really important in our lives because of how they make us feel and how some people, just by virtue of them being themselves, you know, like their light shines so bright, it inspires you. Just people you know, right? That they inspire you because whether they're celebrities or people you know, like someone that helps you or someone that, you know, doesn't, you know, someone that, you know, will talk to you when you're having bad times or someone like that. Like there'll be someone who's really helped you, and it's basically the point is be that to someone else, right? So like, you know, let's say
No, I think it's be that to yourself.
Is it?
Be the person you need in life. So you be the person that you need.
Is that like what Peterson said? It was like treat yourself as if you're someone you're looking after, maybe.
Yeah, like that kind of, yeah.
Yeah, okay. If we take it like that, I like that point because like people will treat themselves a lot worse than they treat other people. Like that they'll if you're like some people find themselves in terrible situations, like you know mentally, you know perhaps not not getting out of bed, sort of stuck in hell potentially, like you know a hellish situation. They just you know hold a depression they don't see the way out of, or like you know so and they sort of fall into some very very bad habits or very bad you know uses of their time. And if you had a child or a friend who you saw doing that, you wouldn't you know and you were looking after them, you wouldn't let them get away with it. You would tell them that you need to change and you need to, but then from ourselves we can't see objectively like that, so we let ourselves get away with you know we let ourselves fall down. And but sometimes you know if you and yourself going outside yourself and seeing yourself from someone else's view can teach you something. So I think like you know if you saw someone else behaving the way you are now, what would you think? You know, I mean Pearson says like don't let your kids do anything that would make you not like them. Which is good because I mean Bill Maher says we live in the fuck you mum generation, and there are you know parents take a lot more than they did from their kids. So like I know kids who swear at their parents now. It's like you know as a parent there has to be a certain respect that kids need to show to parents, and they cannot get away with that. I'm not saying you need to start hitting them, but there needs to be an authority to that. So I think so like you know because some people because it's their kid and they're their you know their wonder and joy, they don't see straight, they don't see that objectively your kid's a dickhead, or objectively you know so it's sometimes taking yourself outside yourself and looking for yourself from an impartial position or asking someone else what they think, because you know from in our own heads we have our view is skewed, right? We're the center of the universe in that way, but like we
Mm-hmm.
can't see what we are like from other people's perspectives. So our point of views are so skewed and biased.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like, even if you sometimes when I'd like set out what I was going to do for the day or write a journal, I would write what would this person do today, or what would this person think I need to do, or like write in my head what would Goggins say I need to do
Mm-hmm.
today, or like what would Peterson say I need to do today. So like take your own sort of mind out of it, so
Mm-hmm.
and use it as like a thought experiment. How like what would this person? Because if you ask that, you could probably come up with an answer. If you said, "What would Jordan Peterson say you need to do today?" Your imagination can figure that out, and some of us having a different perspective. Because if it's what do I need to do, the I and the self and the ego just takes over, and it's not necessarily particularly rational. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a very that's a again these quotes are great, man. So it's they're all unpacking different ideas. So I
Mm-hmm.
like we should do this more often. Maybe this could be a regular
Yeah,
thing.
this is a good thing. I was going to add something to what you're saying. Basically, I was going to say that when you're talking about what you're going to be doing on a daily basis, that's something that I would do regularly. I would think about what is this individual doing? What would he do in this situation? You could also use it or tailor it to different situations because that then provides you with an outside perspective or a more rational approach to doing things. When, but then I think that's another important factor that we have to consider is that when you're placed in this scenario, you could also be asking other people for what they think about what you're doing and what
Do you
you
want to move
potentially could
your
do.
laptop down?
Oh,
Because I
sorry.
think
Can you
you're
see
kind
me?
of, yeah, there you are. That's better. Do you want to do it?
S-
Maybe slightly more.
Okay. Can you see me
I'm
now?
thinking like, yeah, I'm thinking for the frame for YouTube.
Oh,
No,
okay.
sorry, sorry,
Okay.
continue.
Okay. So when you're writing down in your journal or your logbook or your to-do list, what you need to do for the day, you could potentially ask for an outside opinion what you need to do or what you're doing and how you could do it better. And that's the importance of having a mentor. You need to have a mentor relatively I think all people should have a mentor, to be honest, because even the most wealthy people, Bill Gates had a mentor, Warren Buffett had a mentor, Mark Zuckerberg had a mentor, Steve
Hmm.
Jobs also had a mentor. These people all have mentors and they all have people to look up to. They have coaches, they have instructors, they have father figures for them and who set out the road and set out the path that they need to travel. And even in university or in school, you could have friends who are mentors. You could have friends who guide you on specific decisions and who provide you with information on different decisions. Having only speaking to yourself relatively regularly is not a particularly good thing to do because your mind can become like an echo chamber, and so you're just
Hmm.
hearing the same thing continually. But if you get other people to provide you with an outside perspective that can provide you with information that you didn't already know and provide you with like those oh my light bulb moments. And so
Hmm.
you need to do that is what I think. Coming back to this main point, which is that people need to what was the point? People should rely on themselves or be the person you need. That was
Hmm.
the point. Children, that comes back to the point with the child, because you can provide your child with everything he needs, but you need to provide him with the impetus and the motivation and the support so that he becomes older and he becomes the individual that he relies on. And there are many degrees to which you can do this. You can teach him how to rely on himself financially. You can teach him how to rely on himself academically. You can teach him how to rely on himself mentally. You can teach him how to rely on himself physically. Well, how do you do this? You can teach him about nutrition. You can teach him about fitness. You can teach him about meditation. You can teach him about spirituality for mental health. You can, for fitness, you teach him about exercising and the importance of eating healthy foods. For financially, you could perhaps teach him, you could perhaps set up a meeting with an accountant or a banker who could tell you how you can manage your finances properly so that you can invest in assets and develop a nice portfolio for yourself in the long term, so you can get some good inflows of money coming in. And when it comes to as an individual, you can teach him how to cook, how to clean, how to do the hoover, how to do these chores. And when you do that, it develops a sense of respect within for the child for you, because he understands the amount of time, effort, and dedication that you have gone through to raise him. And then that also simultaneously teaches him the importance of caring for himself and caring for others. So in that sense, he's becoming an adult and learning how to become an adult at a young age. So he's living as if he's living like he's living outside of the home, like me and Mark should be doing, and we are doing, because we're students, right? And eventually we're going to have to do that at some point. We have to cook for ourselves, clean for ourselves, and that's a great experience overall. And that's what we need. That will be a life changer in many people's lives, and we should help out those parents, I think, that are perhaps having problems with their children, because if they do this regularly, then the respect should increase from there, and they'll become better people overall as well.
To be honest, I kind of want to expand that point you went over before about
Like the journaling in the morning and talking about what you're thinking to do, and also sort of asking, what would this person think? I'm kind of thinking for like a clip or for YouTube, because I have quite a good video in mind actually. Because you've seen the movie Limitless, right?
Yeah, I've seen parts of it, not all of it.
Yeah, so that's
But I get the gist.
And it's like a lot. I mean, Sinbad did a video about how to be limitless in real life, and it's like, because that movie represents a brilliant idea. So the guy takes a pill, and it's like he all of a sudden just, he becomes, he gets, the first thing he does is he cleans his room, and then he, he gets his life in order. He finishes his book, then he goes
Listening
to
to
stock market, makes
Peterson.
some money. Yeah,
Cleaning his room.
it's funny how that works. And then so he gets some money, goes to the stock market, becomes a successful businessman, then runs for president, whatever. And it's almost as if there's a moment where he takes the pill, whatever. The pill's not important. The pill is the reason people love Limitless is because it represents an idea. And in the movie, he just sort of says, and that he just dawns on me, knows what he needs to do. And I feel like everyone knows deep down what they need to do, right? And sometimes in the morning, for you to ask yourself, what I do sometimes, it's like I'll ask myself, if I was on NCT or I had that drug, imagine it existed, what do I think I would do? So it's a very interesting thought experiment, and it takes you outside yourself, and you think, if I had this pill that opens all my brain up and I see limitless potential and possibilities in myself, what do you think I would do? Obviously, you don't have the pill, but it's sort of like, use your imagination and takes you outside yourself, and you think, okay, well, I want this, and I'll do this to get it, and it can help you find, because everyone knows what they need to do, but people don't do it for whatever reason. Excuse, whatever you want to say. People know what we should be doing with our time, what we shouldn't be doing. There are things that are very worthwhile doing with our time. There are things we want to do. There are things we want to do, but we end up doing something else because it's what everyone thinks we should do, or because, it's what our parents want or whatever. Like, everyone knows what they should be doing with their time, and everyone knows what they really want or what they really should be doing. And people don't. I remember Peterson said, if everyone did what they knew they needed to do, the world would be a much better place. Like, people will run away from, destiny, whatever, like run away from their potential. Like, there's a really good quote. I don't remember who said it, but it's like, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
It's the guy from, it's the kid, what's it called?
Coach Carter.
Carter something?
Coach Carter,
yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Kid
like,
from Coach Carter.
It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And it's like, when you shine your light, you give unconscious permission for other people to do the same, right? That's a very.
That was awesome. That was the best part of the film.
Yeah, that quote is so, because everyone, honestly, people's deepest fear isn't that they're not good enough. The deepest fear is that they are, and they are going to miss the opportunity, or like they are good enough, but they'll waste time and procrastinate, or miss the or like take too long to decide, or miss the bus. That's the real fear. Because if we aren't good enough to do something, and that's just how it is, then we can kind of accept that to some degree. But if, like, our deepest fear is that, like, we can have this amazing life, we have it in us, and we know we do have it in us, but for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. That's our deepest fear. Deepest fear is that actually it's within us to be great, but very few people, I feel like, not that many people actually achieve it, their own potential.
That's true.
And yeah, that's sort of just like a little nugget that helps me. I would just think, what would this person think I should do, or what the best version of me as like an abstract concept, what would he do today? What would he think about this? What would he do? What would his timetable look like for the day? That's kind of.
But then you can also switch that, right? you can also do how would that individual deal with this scenario? How would he deal with this guy saying this to me? How would he deal with this criticism of me? Like Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger wouldn't care if someone someone criticized him
Exactly.
like the other
Yeah.
time, I think he was whilst he was governor or while he was giving a speech on politics, some guy threw eggs at him, and he's like, "Where's my bacon? You shouldn't. If you want to give me eggs, you have to give me bacon as well, right?" That's what constitutes a good
Yeah.
morning.
I actually, because on YouTube there's a lot of like
Mhm.
a lot of character videos about, you know, Harvey Specter, Peaky Blinders, Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders, Cats in America, whatever. Because we all see things in these characters that we wish we were more like them in an aspect. So like people look at Cats America, sometimes it's, oh, I wish I looked like him, I wish I was that strong, or like I wish I was that courageous. Or for, you know, for Iron Man, it's I wish that was that funny, that charismatic, that confident. For same for Harvey Specter, for, you know, for Peaky Blinders, have you ever seen it? That they people admire that character because of its, you know, his unflinching. Like a guy could hold a gun to his head and he wouldn't blink. That kind of, there's always, we look at movie characters and they're like archetypal, and we look to them as archetypes of like one thing, and we think, okay, you know, I wish I could be more like them in one aspect. So that's why I always like watching. That's one thing I do a lot on TV. I'll look at characters and sort of,
So they're like representative of what our subconscious like desires.
yeah, because like it's a Peterson thing. He always talks about it. It's like every movie is like archetype. I mean, everything's a hero's journey, really, and movies are just reflections of life because everyone goes through their hero's journey. We, like, you know, oh
Oh,
jeez.
your camera's turned off for some reason.
Yeah. I just got a low battery.
Okay.
Should be okay though. Back into it.
Okay.
Yeah, back into that. So the hero's journey is basically it's life. Basically, it's you start out not all you could be. Something happens. You learn, or like something bad happens. Well, like, okay, so you think you'll be fine. Something happens to you, and you learn that you're not enough to do this thing or whatever, this experience. Then you learn something, and then you finally beat whatever you're trying to beat. And then you go back to the start where you were, you know, back to your life, but you're not the same. You're more than you were. So that's the hero's journey, and it's played in every single movie. So that's why we relate to movies so much. I actually think Peterson says that's why Marvel's so big, because I mean, right now, men in particular, they need, like, you know, they're literally. I mean, he said Thor is like one of the characters is Thor. He's literally a god. Like he's an archetypical myth that is used as an idea. Like I think, you know, like there are, to some degree, men are maybe lacking role models or like stuff to aspire to or look up to or fulfill their ambitions. And I think seeing these, you know, these courageous men on the screen, on the big screen, that's why men love it so much, I think. And I think there's a reason why Marvel is running the world at the moment and not 20 years ago. I think there's a hunger for that. I mean, even Thanos, like people look at that and go, you know, he's a bastard, but there are redeeming qualities, and like there's a coolness about him that, you know, people want to be that cool. And I think TV characters are great ways of representing that.
Yeah, it's like there's redeeming qualities in all characters. Like when I was watching I was watching cartoons the other day. You have the cool guys and then good guys, and then you have the bad guys. And I'm like, oh, the bad guy's actually really good. Like he's actually a really cool character now. This is what I like about him, that he does this, he does this, he does this, and maybe I can incorporate that into myself so that I feel better about myself, or I feel that I'm becoming like a better person. It's like Bruce Lee's quote, like it's like take the good it's not the exact quote, but it's like take the good stuff and leave the bad stuff, or
Yeah.
take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah, I mean, my brain wants me to lead into like, we could do like a how to be alpha video, but like the thing is, the alpha, when people say alpha, I know it's like a meme now, but when they say alpha, they mean like a leader. That's what they mean. The alpha male is the leader. So, and men want to be leaders. There's a very innate desire for many men. They want to be the leader. They want to be that they want that responsibility, and they want to be the king. They want to be the leader, or not necessarily like it's not necessarily for a power thing. It's just like to be the leader in your group of friends, or not even all the time, but at some point to be trusted with that.
The reason as to why they want to be that leader differs between us.
Of course, yeah, but like I feel like just, to be trusted with a responsibility by your fellow people, for your tribe, for your mates, for your little circle, right? It's such an innate desire. I mean, we evolved in little tribes of 100, 200 people, and everyone had their responsibilities and stuff. And you were trusted with your brother's life and stuff. Your brother meeting blood brother as well as actual brother, and I think I don't. You could say a million reasons why, but I think men are kind of noticing. A lot of men want to become more masculine, and I think that's why everyone's sort of going top 10 alpha tricks. Like,
The videos aren't particularly helpful, I don't think, but there's a reason why people are searching for it, because they feel a lack of something. Like, they feel like they're not enough to be a leader, or they're not enough to be the center of attention, or enough to be socially respected, maybe.
But then again, there's that issue as well. Like, having me being in that situation, I was the kid a few years ago looking for those videos, but then like shallow reasons, shallow motives. I'm not saying that this is true for the whole population, because it differs from person to person, of course, and it's subjective to the individual. But then it's just like a feel good bit of content. Like, you feel like you've done something and accomplished something, when in reality nothing has changed, and then people just go from one piece of content to another, to another, to another, to another, and you're like, oh, I'm changing, when in reality nothing's happening, because there's no like practical piece of advice that's given in order to improve yourself towards what you want to become. But it's a disproportionate amount of people who are looking for that probably feel like that, to be honest, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we said there's basically that's like the dark side of self-improvement. Like, there's a real tendency for a lot of people. I think a lot of people who do self-improvement might be wasting their time, because they read a self-help book. They go, oh, that was good, and then move on, and they want to apply one idea into their lives. So that's literally less than irrelevant. Like, it's wasting your time. You read this book and think, oh, okay, that's worthwhile. I've spent 2 hours reading a book, and that's great. I've really achieved something there. It's like, you haven't. You've read a book. And
you might as well do something else.
It's like, if you like, it takes me a long time to read a book, because like I won't finish the book until I feel like I've applied the ideas in my own life. And I always refer back to books. I always look back on. So people have these crazy bookcases. Like, don't lie to yourself. Like, there's no way you've read 500 books and you've applied 500 books.
One amazing tip though I'd like to give to everyone is, like, if you do want to read books and you're reading the self-help books, or you're reading whatever books you're reading, you can do it simultaneously. Like, you could double your productivity by doing things at the same time. So you can, for example, go to the gym, at the same time have audiobooks on. So, or you could listen to a lecture. Like, I was thinking about doing this. I was thinking of going to the gym regularly, but at the same time listening to my lectures via my headphones or earphones. So I'm revising at the same time as like getting fit and healthy. So I was accomplishing 2 goals at once. Like, I was improving my grades, but at the same time I was going to improve my physical health and well-being as well. So that was quite good.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, recently walking to the gym is about a 25-minute walk.
You do audiobooks as well, right?
Yeah, I've been doing my Spanish, because I have my
nice.
Spanish is there's a dog going mental. But like, my Spanish is PIMSA, and it's basically just a half an hour's talk. They'll talk conversation, and then you'll repeat it and stuff. So on my walk back, I will do that, which is brilliant, because I've struggled to finding half an hour every single day to sit down and really focus on a foreign language is quite difficult to do every single day. It's a hard habit to get into, and it's hard to stick with it. But having, like, walking back, it's like I have no choice. I have to walk for 25 minutes. I have to do it. There's no choice in that. I might as well do something while I'm walking. So that's helped me a lot. But I think if we go back to the point about, like, some of the problems self-improvement can have, because there is this sort of thing which is like, look at me. I read 500 books this year. I don't see that as. I always see you will gain value from it, but I feel like this race to how many books you've read is like a social thing, especially for, like, people who are like university graduates and middle class people. They're much lower. I've read all of these books, and it's like, I feel like it's quality, not quantity, in the sense, not necessarily the quality of the book, but the quality of how much you've actually read it and thought about the ideas in the book. Because these, like, you can read 12 Rules for Life, right? You can read it in a day potentially, if you sat there all day reading it. But you go, okay, you'll consider the ideas for 10 minutes, and then you'll go cook some pasta, and you forget about it, and then you'll move on to the next book, and nothing would have changed at all from reading that book. So if you're going to read a book, you have to consider that, you have to, potentially make notes about it, write it down, consider thoroughly what the book's trying to say, apply it to your own life, and don't just, make sure you're absorbing it, not just reading it like a fiction book. If you want to read a book to pass, because you enjoy reading, then read a fiction book. If you're going to read a self-help book, what you want to call it, self-help, personal development. If you want to read Peterson's book or Goggins's book, if you just read it once and put it down and never look at it again, you're wasting your time. That's not self-improvement. You feel like you've achieved something. You really haven't. That's the thing. It's like you got, take the time to understand the ideas to the extent where you can explain to someone else, and also think about your own life and how you can apply those, ideas in your life, and constantly go back to them. Yeah, I think it's a big problem. But I think.
But then we also. Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of want to finish the alpha thing because I want to make it clear.
Okay.
Like I feel like if it's funny because I've been like this, if you need this idea where the need to be the alpha male, it does stem from insecurity to some degree, because if you feel that, I mean, obviously, okay, some men are low confidence. You can call them bees. It's a kind of a meme now, but some men are low confidence and perhaps more feminine than they would like. So I understand this desire to be more masculine, but I think like it's leading people astray to some degree, because it lends people to like almost act that way, and they're sort of fronting that they're this person, but they're not, and it's people can see right through that, and it's very. I mean, okay, I think some of the most insecure men are the big macho men who are always fighting, right? I think some of them are so unless you're a gang leader, you don't need to be always showing strength.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to. And if you're always showing strength and never show weakness or never show any vulnerability, that's insecurity in your part. I think the bravest man is the man who will humble himself, a man that will let other people have the spotlight and talk, listen to other people and not just be all about them, and not be happy with who they are to some degree. And obviously, personal development means you're not happy with who you are by definition, but sort of, especially when you're socially, like just be content with who you are, and don't. I think the most confident man is the man who's got nothing to prove. If you've got something to prove, then you're not that confident. If you have nothing to prove, then you are confident.
I think that when it comes to this issue, you have to realize that the idea of this alpha was created by a man or a person that's no more intelligent than you or I am. And people who think that this is the remedy to solving my insecurity or solving my problem. Well, it may be a marketing scheme in order to generate higher revenues for companies. It may not even exist. There may not be a real problem there. The problem may just be your insecurity, like you're saying. Maybe you need to sit down with a psychologist or a therapist and figure out how to restructure your life so that it's a fulfilling, deep, meaningful life, so that you actually have an enjoyable time. It's not about being the best or being the greatest. We're human beings and we're designed to work with one another, regardless of our race, ethnicity, and gender. We all built this world together. We built this world by coming together, cooperating, communicating. We're all like brothers and sisters. We need one another. Like there's a religious thing where we all come from Adam and Eve. We all need one another. Eventually, at some point, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all tied together, and we're all reliant on one another in order to survive. If we don't have the farmers out there producing our foods for us, we're not going to go and get them ourselves, right? We go to Sainsbury's, we go to Tesco. They do a portion of the work, and we're reliant on them. We need one another to survive. So we shouldn't be trying to outdo one another or trying to be the greatest in the room and trying to belittle people or trying to insult people and trying to be like, oh, flexing on them, but stuff like that. No, I don't agree with that in the slightest. Like we should be helping one another, caring for one another, trying to make the world a better place, trying to allow ourselves to be happy with one another. Like it's okay to be perfectly extroverted or introverted or be somewhere in the middle. Like just have a good, enjoyable, meaningful, fun life. You're here for a limited amount of times. Just focus on what you can do to make the world a better place rather than focusing on this shallow concept of trying to be the best and trying to outdo everyone, because eventually you're going to realize that's not the correct mindset to have. Eventually we're like cogs in a machine that are reliant on one another. We don't need to be fighting against one another. If the cogs in a machine are turning opposite directions, you're not going to be generating a positive change for the whole of society and for yourself even. You're not going to be feeling good deep down because you might regret like making little Timmy feel bad at school because you were trying to like impress everyone. Like chill out, man. Like you don't need to do that.
I honestly think the measure of a man, if we talk about men, the measure of a man is how he deals with his own insecurities and how secure he is. Because it's like I said, you know, people want to prove to the world that they're the alpha. It's like you really got to prove to yourself you're the alpha. It's not to do with anyone else. You know, use the word alpha as like, you know, I understand what it means to people, even though technically, because you know, humans do arrange and men assign leaders, so it's not the concept's not incorrect. It's a correct concept, but I feel like people realizing that's the way the world works, unfortunately, like it's potentially leading to their notice that they're not the leader and they're making.
But then you also have Mark. But then you also have people who are like forcing it upon people, like, oh, you're not him, and you're like a beta, and you should be doing this, and like leave little Jimmy alone. Like let him do his own thing, right? He doesn't want to be that. So why are you forcing it on him?
To be honest, like if you go into masculinity, I really feel like every human on the earth, whether they're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. You should be you yin and yang. You're both. You're masculine and you are feminine. And if you're lacking in understanding of either side,
your camera turned off again.
Yeah, I know it keeps doing 20% battery anyway. But if you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. You are yin and yang. You are a mix between masculinity and femininity. And if you have to have both. It's not, you know, men want to, you know, men, anything that's feminine is just, you know, men don't like to see it in other men. They always call them a pussy or call them gay or whatever, you know, because men want to be, you know, wants other men to be masculine or whatever. But I feel that there needs to be more, you know, people need to be more understanding about that because, you know, I feel like a lot of this alpha stuff is really from an insecurity of men want, the men who look at these videos, they're usually single. Like they don't have girlfriends or usually never had girlfriends. And, you know, the alpha gets the girl. That's probably why these people want to be alpha so much, because then they think they're worthy of getting, you know, the girl, because I think that's really where this stems from. And that's the thing, is like girls don't want the big macho toughest of the toughest necessarily. You know, they want a complete man. They don't want just this one side. They want a man who's strong but also kind, or, you know, who has empathy but is all, you know, who's mentally tough and can get through the hard times but it's also caring.
The camera's turned off again.
Okay, this is really getting on my nerves now. Yeah, it's basically it's my laptop, and it's charging to 20% and then going down again. Okay, so I'll unplug it for a second. But yeah, so, you know, that's just that there is this, you know, men think women want this ultra masculine, tough, macho kind of action, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator kind of figure, and it's like they don't really. They want a complete human. You want to be a complete human. You don't want to just be one side, because, right?
I don't think that's like necessary. I think that I come back to the Jordan Peterson thing, where it's like if you get your act together, the world will be a better place. And if you get your act together, like in as a whole, then you don't need to be focusing on this notion of alpha and everything else, because it's superfluous. It's more than what's necessary at that point. You don't need to be doing that. If you get your act together, you can cook, clean, provide for yourself, have a nice family, have nice friends, have good physical health and good mental health, then eventually you'll be characterized as one of them anyway. But you don't need that approval, you don't need the approval and validation of others, because it's as worthless as salt, really, or as worthless as dirt. Even dirt is more valuable than gaining the approval and validation of others. What's really important is whether or not you're fulfilled deep down, and whether or not you're content with yourself, right? Because you're not living your life for others, you're living your life for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how long we've been going.
This has been a while on this topic.
How long have we gone overall? Like an hour and a bit, maybe?
I think like
the thing is like
almost an hour.
The thing is like the topic of YouTube and like the sort of self-improvement space to do with like men and stuff. It's very it's become a big thing because. And, you know, I don't want to dismiss the ideas out of hand, because I understand why, you know, some young men want to, because, you know, that there is, I mean, Peterson talks a lot about young, but I think young men and sort of they're struggling to some degree. Mental health. I mean, there was a statistic. I mean, this is all people, obviously not just men, but like 10% of the US population is seriously considered suicide. That's a lot. That's a big number.
Wow.
That's a big number. So, like, people are lacking, a contentment with their life. And I think Peterson's point of responsibility is really the key, because the way to be a man isn't to sit down and think about it. The way to be a man is to have, to go out and do stuff and become better and have responsibility. Because when you have a job, let's say you have a job, you're responsible for that job. It's a reason to get up in the morning. It's a reason to show up well dressed, all clean, good hair, shaved. It's a reason to have high standards, and to, it's a responsibility, and it's a reason to get up in the morning, for God's sake. I mean, God, like, that's the problem with COVID. I think people will be happy when they're back in work, because, whether you like your job or not, the responsibility of having the job is what we live for. That's why, fuck's sake, man.
This is actually getting really annoying right now. I think we should consider maybe ending this soon.
Okay, sure.
Because I think the technical difficulties might become insurmountable. I'm not sure. There's actually a chance that the recording will pick up anyway, because it's only happening on my phone screen, not on the cloud
recording is
itself.
coming through. It's just your camera that switches off.
Yeah, but I think the camera switches off. Okay, but anyway, it's fine. I can edit that. Did you mute yourself?
Oh, you can't. Can you not hear?
Wait, what did you just do? I can hear you now.
Oh, I have like a little button.
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I can turn it off.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, we can probably wrap this up. To be honest, I'm glad we're gonna cover. This Reddit thing can be something we we can call it Reddit, or call it our view as well.
Do like reacting to Reddit.
Jeez. Yeah, that'll definitely be insightful. Look at this. Hey, don't do a podcast, everybody. It's a right pain in the ass. You know how manual.
Well, are you just trying to get rid of the competition?
Yeah. Self-serving. But yeah, that's all slanted, Dusk. You're not screwed. Let's. To be honest, when I watch a podcast, I don't mind if, like, what's going on. I'm gonna have to, okay, if anyone's watching this, it's roly-poly may happen. There we go. Oh. Yeah, I can't see you, mate.
Yeah, just bear with me for 2 seconds.
No worries.
I might end the recording there, mate.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
All right, because I think I the bit where I said don't do a podcast, guys. I understand. That's quite a nice way to end a podcast.
Okay, speak to you soon then, man.
Yeah, I mean.